We'll go ahead and call this work session to order. Michelle, may I have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Supervisor Stanzel?
Here.
Supervisor Hobbs?
Here.
Supervisor Fitch?
Here. Okay, we're all here. So basically what this is as you guys know, we're still working, Solutions is still working with the auditor and the treasurer to get us month end done. We can't really provide anything to our
Approve the agenda.
oh, thank you. I don't have anything up, so thank you.
No worries.
All right, we'll go ahead and approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so normally how we do this, by now, we would have met with most of the department heads, gone over their budgets. This is just to give you knowledge, Jess. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that because we don't have current numbers, because month end isn't done. I did speak to Solutions a couple days ago. They said they finished July, they're working on auditing August now. So hopefully we'll get those audits done so we can get our department heads updated numbers so you guys can work on your budgets. So what the purpose of this meeting is oftentimes when we meet with department heads, we go over what they're asking for, we look at our existing budget and see what's valid or not. So what we're trying to do is flip the script now, is see, as supervisors, I want to look through our budget, see if there's anything we need to ask our department heads to look at, maybe change, tweak, remove, or basically just X and see if there's something we need to look at. So we'll go ahead and start with Department 1, which is the Board of Supervisors. We don't have a lot, so on here, we have some training, some office supplies, legal notices, board proceedings, postage and mailing, employee mileage and travel, education and training. So this is a pretty small budget.
I have a question.
You don't have a lot of it. Yes.
How much postage do you pay a month? Because I use my own.
$1.70 a year. That's all I've done since
I question that, because I use my own stamps, and I have the stamps in my drawer, and if anybody needs them, they come and throw the money in the pot and take the stamps. So
Well, are these are, I don't know if these are public notices, because if you look at historical, we have spent it.
It's postage
I don't know
and
who's
mailing.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's doing it?
So unless there's something that they're putting underneath there, I don't know.
It could be
So-
something that they deemed
Supervisor oriented?
correct.
Oh, that they mail it for us. That's a possibility,
Mhm.
yeah.
So do we want to,
Is that a question?
is that a question? Do we want to remove it? Do we want to?
No, I think we need to ask if we, because we use it, but who uses it? The rest is just hard times.
Okay, so, it looks like we're using our education and training budget. I know we talked about, coordinating better to see, so not all of us go to the same thing. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if that would reduce that cost. So basically what that is probably 3 ISAC trainings.
Oh, it would, if we all went to this one.
Well,
it would wipe
they
us
have
out.
like 3 here. They have the
Yeah.
supervisor one,
The
they have
spring
the
one
spring
is-
one, and the fall one.
You need to go to these the first ones.
Yeah.
So I went to the 2-day seminar last week, and then I'm going again on the 30th.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then next year, we're not going to need the
Probably.
same
Well,
level, right?
But they, what they
It would
do
be
is
maybe
they,
a day for each of us.
yeah, they have what it is that there's a spring and a fall, and then they also have a dedicated supervisors one, which is, I think it's important to go to, because that's basically where they focus on what the supervisors' responsibilities are. We learn a lot about the legislative changes, anything coming down the pike. Did they mention any legislative changes at all at your new officer training?
Just discussions, nothing,
Discussions.
of course, but ironically, I asked them about if any of the legislators were talking about potentially replacing property tax with sales tax. And they said they were actually looking into it and trying to understand.
Well, that's gonna be a long
It's a long haul.
process, that's not gonna
Yeah.
happen this year. Okay, so the dues and memberships have been pretty stable. Let's see what else. Board proceedings. That is, Michelle, do you have any idea what that, I'm trying to remember what that is. We spend relatively the same on average for that,
So how much is it?
4,000.
4,000 per annum? Again, my guess might be that there's a pro rata share for the use of this facility. I don't know, because I can't think of any other, proceedings might be also publications. Is there a separate line item for publications?
There is.
There is publications and legal notices, that's
Okay, so that's not
2,500.
it? Do you want me to find out?
Yeah, let's find out the difference, because what we can do is maybe tighten up the definition on there, so.
We've used
future-
4,000 though this year. What's the annual budget?
Well, remember,
Oh, we don't know.
we don't know
That's
what they
right.
used last year.
I wonder if board
What-
proceedings, is that when we have,
Hearings?
Yeah.
And we
public hearings, and we have to publish it, we have to have a bill, that might be public hearing, that's my guess, public hearings.
Okay.
And we have used it, so
I'll
then that
find
would
out.
make sense.
Okay, because we've been spending relatively the same amount based on this
Yeah.
last budget in previous years, so
Okay.
maybe we can.
What
tighten
is
up-
that?
Yeah.
I don't wanna guess.
Let's see, well, about 4,000 is what we, so you'll probably wanna keep that stagnant, because we've used it.
Okay. So, yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty, any other questions on that? We can move on to the next one.
Consulting must be, lawyers.
The consulting, I think that might be in Department 99, I don't know.
Well, it's under that, where is it? Under this, too. Go up above, training, general basic dues, membership, where did I see consulting?
I know it's on here. I think it's in zoning. I'm thinking about the consulting for the ordinance development, I think that's in the
So
zoning.
it goes under our section.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, the next one is the auditor's office. You know, a lot of the stuff we'll probably have to ask her, and it looks like there's been pretty consistent costs all the way along.
She has almost no changes, I just go through it.
So, the only thing we could probably eliminate is the currently funded second deputy position. That's something we can consider, if that's not needed.
We better ask her.
We'll have to ask her. But, we might have to raise election supplies, because there is gonna be, she's having a special election now, and then there's gonna be the city and school.
What's a
Next.
special election?
Oh, like if school boards do something.
I don't know she found out during new officers training school that there's a special election that they have to do. I don't know
Oh,
if it's
across the board, across the state?
I don't know. I don't
It's
know
for
if
the Orient Maxburg School District.
Oh, yes, because they're redistricting and you have to,
They
yeah.
have to go to election, yeah, okay.
And, yeah, there was, like, Adair didn't want to assort them because of the TIF, right? I think that's. what
There's a
it was.
lot of issues right
Lot of
now, trying to
issues.
figure out tax districts and things like that.
And this is the one to decide whether or not to close.
They have already
They already
decided to
closed.
close.
Oh, they have.
They're deciding on how to district each, and if Winterseth's gonna, going to be taking a portion of it or
Who's
not.
going to assort them, you know?
Okay, all right. So, there's a portion of Orient Maxburg School District in our county, so that's fine. So, those are things you might wanna consider when we talk to them going forward. And then there's the city and school election in the fall.
I'll have to ask her, but I bet she might need to increase that, like,
So, let's see. So basically, this is basically what we can see, eyeball, something to ask them, hey, can we eliminate this, do we need to improve this? so we have our questions ready, because our window for finalizing the budget is gonna be pretty tight.
I was alarmed when we were talking about the timelines and the training, and that's not having started yet, so I'm glad we're.
So,
Doing what
I
we
did
can.
speak to the, state, Iowa Department of Management. They did say that if we do not approve a budget by April 30th, then we are not allowed to levy, we're not allowed to tax any more than we did this year,
Yeah,
regardless of what the
they'll
levy
freeze
is.
it,
So,
no matter what we need.
yeah, so, we have to have the very first public hearing after March 20th. And then it has to, the budget has to be finalized April 30th.
But we're at our max levy, so.
Well, it all depends on, unless they change the law, it all depends on the assessed values. So even if assessed values go up, yeah, so we can't tax anymore should we not have this ready. Now, obviously, that's not ideal, but they did say that if you don't pass the budget, and the worst case scenario is you're not gonna be able to take more money. But you must pass the budget, have it ready no later than June 30th, otherwise we can't spend it.
No,
So yeah, so.
and they will hold you to that.
Yeah, yeah, so we have, that's why I'm doing this, because I'm concerned about our narrow window here. Okay, so it looks like, based on this current budget, I don't see any unusual asks that haven't been consistent.
Are you still in the auditor?
Yeah, hers is
Okay.
very long, because she has it segmented in
Yeah.
different sections.
But it's no, she's had virtually no changes throughout, it's,
Right. So, so now we're on, if you guys are okay with that, we can move on to the treasurer.
No more grants or anything. I see the cybersecurity grant, but that's done.
That's done, that was a one and done.
Nothing else on the horizon that we potentially capture.
so that line item could, we'll have to ask for that now. When, I don't know.
Well, well,
Just have to stay on for so many cycles or
I
something.
no,
don't
we
know.
can remove that
Yes.
line item, there's no money there, but we can move that line item. So now the one thing that on her local elections, under election officials, she didn't have city and school elections last year, obviously, because it wasn't off year, but she'll need putting that back in the budget this year. So it'll probably budget around the same amount, so we need to keep that in mind.
I thought you were gonna increase her.
Yeah, because right now, I'm looking at the budget, there's no money is assigned to it in the fiscal year 25, and in fiscal year 26, we're gonna have to add that. Okay, so if you guys are okay, we can move on to the treasurer.
Yeah.
So,
Can I take a step back, higher level, just a question? I just, being new and outside looking in and having facility experience, it seems like there's a lot of space in the courthouse that's not utilized.
yes,
Now, that being said, the temperature is so high in the supervisor office, I can't comfortably work there. I know Chip, and I spoke briefly about it, that there are leaks in the system and there's piping issues, or leaks in the piping, and the piping is original. So that's alarming to me, knowing that that could be a very big spend. And looking under the lens of, well, is there some space we could be repurposing and better utilizing in the courthouse? Well, yes, if it were comfortable and, the temperatures were adequate. But there's several that are using air conditioning in the winter. And so I'm sure there's a payback there for energy savings, but it's gonna be I don't know what that looks like, but
we're talking a $1 to $2 million upgrade.
I would,
We've already looked at it.
okay,
So,
to replace all the piping
to
the
do
original?
central air, yeah.
and add air conditioning.
Well, basically have temperature control, because right now it's a boiler, so it's on or off, pretty much. So what we've done, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, is that in the wintertime, when it's really hot, we actually crack the windows. Well, unfortunately now, with the new windows, unless you're really tall, or you have something to stand on, it's hard to open windows, and we don't have a
Well, and
and I open the windows.
It's not everybody can, Diane.
Stand on
So
the
the-
chair and open the windows.
Well, not everybody's comfortable doing that. I've had people come to me express.
Well, that's a security concern, opening windows too.
Yes.
And it, you know, I
And the
mean-
thing is that the construction people told us, and that's one of the reasons, if you recall, they didn't put the little handles that I asked, the sash handles, is because the idea was they didn't want the windows being open.
I
I'm
open
a-
the windows,
I'm a little
yes. I open
uncomfortable.
it this much, and then when I leave, I close it, and I'm in
Okay,
the
but that's
office.
not even the point. My point is, that's gonna be a big spend and something to address in the future. But I'm looking at real estate and I'm thinking, is there a way to reconfigure, change how we're using it and consolidate our real estate? But there's really not when we can't move people to the courthouse, maybe that if we can't give them a comfortable place to work. So I'm just trying to think through my head, and obviously not having the backstory. I spoke briefly with Chip. I know it's gonna be a big price tag. I know we're gonna need time to develop that and understand that.
That's phase 2.
Phase 2. But it just our real estate in general, do we have spaces that aren't being utilized or being underutilized, or?
Well,
CICS.
CICS is, yes, they lost their bid.
That's through June.
So they,
They'll be vacating
They'll be-
after June 30?
yes, they'll be vacating that space across the supervisor's office. We can certainly, you know, repurpose that office in such a way to where, we'd have to discuss it more and maybe at a future meeting, but repurpose it in such a way to where we can possibly maybe move the supervisors over there, maybe HR over there, and then repurpose the other rooms. Maybe bring public health back into the courthouse. We can sell the public health building. That would also add additional cushion to our budget in case things are tight. Again, we've talked about this, and I'm nervous about the legislature capping our revenue. So, and of course, you know, the taxpayers are expecting lower taxes too. They're not expecting higher taxes. So I think there's ways to do it. I am also very hot in there, and, you know, I don't have to stand on a chair to open a window, but there are people that are, and then some people are uncomfortable pushing against the glass to lift the window, because those pains that.
Did you have something to say, Diane, with your facial expressions?
No, I have no trouble lifting up the window. I live in a house as old as this, and I just lift it up, and Michelle and I can do it. One of us unhooks it, and we just kind of lift, get our fingers under it, and we have no
Well,
issues.
Diane, that's a safety issue. You should be putting your fingers under there.
Oh, Heather, for crying out loud. I'm not a moron.
Diane, I am telling you, it may be okay with you, but we have other people in our county that work here that have expressed concern. So I'm taking their concerns to heart, and I'm listening. I don't want to just ignore them just because it's not, if I
Okay,
can do it,
let's move
fine.
on. She has to go to work, so let's get this done. We're digressing.
Okay, so,
So the only reason that I'm asking that is I'm trying to think about big picture, longer term, and then apply it here. So that's why I went down that rabbit hole.
no, that's a valid.
And that's phase 2, and we do know we need mini splits. We knew we need to change things, but
So, yeah, that's something we can do. And maybe if we do sell the public health building, that would give us additional funds, depending on our budget, to maybe work something like that.
But we're not gonna be able to do that until we work out some other things first.
Right, right. So, okay, so moving on to the treasurer's office. The postage and mailing, that's something I wanted to talk to her about, is, you know, if she still needs that amount. I know I think she didn't use as much of it last year, and then she front-loaded this year's budget in. I don't know all the details on that, but I'm wondering if,
she front-loaded her last $14,000 before the end of the fiscal year into a postage machine. Which, why didn't she dump that back into the general? Dumping $14,000 into a postage machine.
because in that way, it doesn't have to go in this year's budget, I'm assuming.
Oh, wow. I never put that kind of money in a
Well,
postage machine.
Diane, we don't know, and until we talk to her, we're not gonna know, so, but that's something I'd like to ask about, on that.
You know, it would be cheaper, we probably should, I know it's inconvenient, but go back to sharing. 2 postage machines is a pretty expensive cost.
Well, right now, we're that ship is sailed, Diane, because they have a contract,
Oh,
so there's not a lot we can do.
How long is the contract?
5 years. And in order for that to work well, they really need to be in the same building. So to your point, that could be something we can discuss. I don't know how it would work, but in order to share postage meter, it's just not practical, because what it was before she got her own postage meter here, it was in the courthouse for a while, and then the treasurer's office had to schlep everything over there, then it was moved here, and then the auditor has to schlep everything over here, and both offices, they do a lot of mailing. So, it's not practical to just have, currently with two sites, it's not practical to have that, especially, with all the mailing they do. So that's something maybe we can work out future, and figure that out, so we only have one postage meter, because Diane, I do agree with you, we shouldn't have two, but, yeah, this is where we're at right now. Okay, so, so education and training, I'd like to, that's one thing I wanna talk to her about, because I know she got a bunch of new people. I wanna see if that is a sufficient budget for her, if she used it all, or if she went over, because, you know, that's stuff that I wanna make sure that she has what she needs on that. Okay, one thing that I wanted to see what you guys are thinking about is she has not hired her part-time person, and she didn't hire her seasonal person. So what I'd like to do is talk to her to see if that's something she needs, or if that can be eliminated from the budget. So,
How long has she's had it approved for this current fiscal year, but hasn't filled it?
Well, she's gotten along, maybe.
right,
I
so.
think the budget's gonna be tight, she should try to get on it done.
How many people?
That's quite a few.
Four plus.
Four and a half.
How many are in there, Brandy?
Four and a half.
4.5.
So, that could be something we can talk to her about, see if that's something we can maybe eliminate, at least for this budget year, and revisit it next budget year. Is that something you guys are amenable to?
Yeah, we'll have to sit and talk to them, they know what they need. They're elected.
Okay. So if you're okay, we can move on to the attorney's office. And I know, Stephen is probably still trying to figure this out. But, I don't know if he's looked at it or not.
He was looking forward to learning more about the budgeting and that training.
He
so,
was?
Yeah.
So,
A lot of theirs is, they have to
they have to have continuation training, yes.
Yes.
The one thing I'm looking at is their postage. We've been consistently giving them $1,000 every year for that, and sometimes they kind of come within a little bit of it, and sometimes they don't. I don't know what their current year looks like. That could be something we can look at. Mileage and travel, we had that one year where it was 2,000, but those other years, it hasn't really hit that amount. So I'm wondering if that's something we can ask him about.
When he's here, we could ask him if he can go down to 15 or even less. We'll ask him. He knows what he has coming up.
Go on, back up a little bit. What's Boca contract? 20 grand. What's that?
I believe that is their software.
Yeah, they have a different software. It's
Okay.
protected.
And they just did that this year at the end, right?
We can, well, I kick that back. If you look at that line and then you look at,
Two lines down.
it says Boca Contract County Attorney. I'm wondering if that is, the allowance for their, any kind of consultation.
Yeah, because there's also the
They
IFRS,
got it.
FICA, and then the wages, and
Yeah.
so is there,
No,
It's a part-time, let's highlight that.
Aaron
Ask
explained that
about
to
it.
us. We'll have to-
just wanted to understand it.
All
Okay.
right, looks like they're staying consistent. They have the last few years for their office supplies. Special investigations, we've allowed that in the budget in the past, I don't know if we're gonna need it again.
He'll know if he
He'll know.
needs it, but
Okay.
I know one case they had to use that because it concerned a lot of little children. So they had to be special investigators. So they might need that as a in case.
All right, we'll move on to the sheriff.
He's going to come with, stop. He's going to come with a real slim budget, he said.
Yeah, I know he's waiting on the final numbers, so he can make an educated estimate.
Can any of the opioid settlement dollars be used to help him with the mental health crisis he has in his jail?
I don't think
If
so.
they're addicted to opioids even?
Only if they're addicted to opioids, but I
But
don't,
it
we
could
have to.
it could provide some funds for him.
He didn't ask for it, he sits on that task force. We are looking at opening, Steve has great ideas. And then I reached out to another county, and I think I'm gonna have her come over to the next meeting. We really think the facilities that prevent opioid use then after the fact, it doesn't work. And so
Yeah.
we're wondering if we could partner with other counties to have something that is, and that's what we're working on.
A facility of some
Yes,
sort, yeah.
that maybe if we don't have it, a close county that already does.
Yeah.
Zion's pretty good, but, and some counties are giving their money, but we need something. No, he doesn't have any, they do have counseling that go into the jails. But they really shouldn't be in jail. I mean, you know what I mean?
It's not the proper.
It's not the proper
I know it's been a
facility.
struggle for him and all sheriffs.
And what's happened is we've closed all our mental health units, and so we have, we're putting them in jail, and it's just been disaster.
Right.
Um,
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
So also on the fiscal year budget was a vehicle purchase. I don't know if that's a need this year, so.
I think he has an old car, so we might have to buy half a car. I have to ask him on it.
So,
He has one with some pretty high mileage on it.
so on the vehicle purchase to ask about,
His office supply, that's really sticky. Your shoes are sticky. Education is really sticky. They have to.
It's a case management system. I know, yes, that's the whole
She was referring carpool, she was wondering if that was what this development
contract she
was.
signed.
I think it had, I think.
well, what gives me pause, Michelle, is that there's IFRS attached to it, so that's why I was wondering if, yeah, that,
One line item, yeah,
it
has
might be a
Okay.
temporary person or
Gotcha.
something, I don't know, we'll find out.
That's his lane, he'll know. He'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
So, telephone service, again, this is something, just so you guys know, I've asked Jen to give me an inventory of our current telephone and internet service to see if we can consolidate.
I think we paid too much.
Yes.
Great question, yeah, I saw those media comms going, I'm like, wait a minute, what are we sharing here, what's?
Well, some of his is state, and so it's gonna have to remain, but,
Sure.
but some of this stuff, I.
Well, his equipment is state,
Yeah.
but the actual telephone and internet service.
And I would
is
think we
provided by-
should change.
But this is true of every single department. So what I like to look at is look at their contracts, see what kind of services we have, if there's a way we can consolidate and leverage economies of scale in each of these departments. Because we really do, we're paying more than we should.
I'm glad you mentioned that, that was on my concern list.
Yeah.
And I know with my home MediaCom, they'll just keep jacking it up every year until you call them and say, okay, I'm gonna find another provider, and magically they can reduce their numbers back to where they were.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm hoping that comes through, should we decide to fund the ICIT assessment, where they would actually come in and review all that to give us some, maybe not necessarily save us some money, but give us economies of scale so we can leverage future spending, reduce future spending. So that's something that I'm digging into, because you're gonna see this line item on every single department, almost every single department. Education and training, we want, obviously, that's something we need to keep. Machinery and mechanical equipment. I don't know if we need to budget 15,000, so.
He'll know, we'll ask.
But that could be something we can at line item ask.
Well, we'll go through each, when they come, Jess, we'll sit with them and go through every line item.
Oh, yeah, but,
So they'll know.
okay, so, E911 equipment warranty, that's stagnant, that's pretty much the same. And then we're going down the salaries.
His food and provisions, I did reach out to Hy-Vee a couple of years ago, and they said they would give us their leftovers, and the state won't allow it. You have to buy it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are
Okay,
things we need to change.
yes, and it's not something we can change.
I think we
legislature
can.
has to change that. Okay, so prescription and medicines, that is an expense, just as you can see, and that's hard to predict, because it all depends on who's in the jail.
We had one that was at $400 a month until we transferred some money.
So, and a lot of, like, some of these are hard to predict, so prisoner out of county expense, sometimes that's a lot every year, sometimes that's not a lot, it all depends on the
How
situation.
full
of
our
the
jail.
Yeah. So the inmate phone cards, that's an expense, but that's a reimbursable, that you'll see the revenue in the other, budget. Education and training, that's pretty static. You might have to increase natural gas line item, obviously, same thing with the power. Buildings repair and maintenance.
We're in sewers all over.
So buildings and repair and maintenance, there was one year that was over 20,000, and then the other years has been under, so I would like to talk to him to see what his thoughts are on what do you think his building is gonna need.
I bet you can do it.
So I'm thinking we can maybe drop that a little bit. Okay. Okay, adult correction services, that's pretty static. Postage has been pretty consistent. Education and training, now a lot of that is dependent on new hires or continuing education. You can see in 2020, 2021 that we spent over 10 grand, but we have not spent that much since then.
But
So
they are required to have CE. Are
Yes.
they H's or U's? I don't know.
So, okay.
He'll know.
Equipment maintenance and repair, that again it's hard to predict, so that's why we have it as 20 grand. And
He's
then-
gonna need new car or radio batteries, I think, and I worked through CCOP, but they won't help with, something that's not a more of a permanent. And those are
So-
expensive, and I think you'll have
We
to
might
ask
see it.
him when that's coming out.
Yeah, so we might see an increase on the new equipment
Yes.
line. Okay. So moving on to, his is quite big, just because they have it divided in the staff.
Well, he has, Jess, he has civil servants, and then he has Teamsters, and he has different contracts.
Well, he has the clerk, I think, she's union, but which union? Is it the courthouse or the Teamsters?
She's
not
not
at
courthouse.
Courthouse,
She's
okay.
under the courthouse.
Okay.
Used to be civil servant, but.
So. And some of these, Jeff, come under the general basic fund, some of them come under the rural basic fund, they can do that because they're the sheriff's office. So as you can see, if you go down to rural basic fund, I'm on page 21 now.
That's what I was just gonna ask, what's the differences between the rural basic and then the general?
Yeah, so they have to have, they're putting the overtime shift pay in the rural basic. So that's something I know that he was looking at for this fiscal year to figure out a way to massage it so he doesn't have to have as much overtime. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes down this year.
Okay.
So that'll be something we'll need to look at. Fuels, you might have to increase the fuels.
I think diesel, I asked her, I think it's gone up 12 cents, so that's, this is gonna hit secondary roads really hard.
So if the legislature does pass a 2% cap, it's gonna be really hard to stay under that with the increases we're seeing. Okay, so moving on to vehicle repair and maintenance. As you can see, it's been kind of all over the place on that. I don't know if it's gone down this year since we got a new vehicle this year. We'll see how that works.
I don't think repairs on vehicles ever goes down.
Well,
It doesn't seem to.
yeah.
It just seems to cost more.
Well, unless we just replace the whole fleet and start new.
Well, the key is to kind of stagger it.
No, I know, I'm not endorsing that.
You would love that
I'm sure you
idea.
would, yeah.
Let's get Cobra's over it.
So,
Your dream world.
yeah, so, and we have a new equipment line here as well. And I don't know if the batteries will go in there or in the previous line item, but that's something we need to look at. They also get they can qualify for a ICAP safety grant, Jess, they've gotten in the past, so I don't know if we want to assume that.
You'll
But it's
know.
basically, it's a wash, it's revenue in one way, and then,
It just, yeah,
so, and then.
they
it goes
handed
out.
out that one, so it's a, yeah, she's right.
Okay. So, going on to clerk report, there's nothing we can do about. They basically hand us our budget for that. So we'll go ahead and speed through that because we're not gonna be able to do any of that. And now we're here for the recorder. And have you met our recorder, Brandy?
Yeah.
Anyway, just briefly.
Yeah,
Just
she
briefly,
stopped in
yeah.
my office.
Okay, okay, all right. So-
Brandy's always, had a really tight ship. Boy, it's so consistent.
So, okay, so this is just, again, this is just fiscal, I don't know if you, since you're here, Brandy, have you looked at this, your fiscal 25, are you?
It's pretty difficult to when we don't have month end.
Yeah.
I do keep a spreadsheet on all the things that I enter, so I have a roundabout idea of where I am.
Okay.
But as you'll see in most of my line items, I'm about as tight as I can be. You'll see like, expenses, maybe I'll have $30 to $200 left in it. And it just depends.
Your magazines and books, are those the,
The plat books, is that the $450?
are you still, are they still buying those?
We only order 15 a year, and we sell, like, our cost is $26 and we sell them for 40. If they buy them directly from Farm and Home Publishers, they have to spend $65
I
plus service fees. So it's more of a service for the community. We used to sell a lot more, but right now, we have 1 or 2 left for 2024, and we'll get our 2025s in April.
Oh, so you only have 1 or 2 left.
Mhm.
So you
if
are
we-
selling them.
So if we don't do it, they would have to go
To Farm and Home Publishers directly.
directly.
And they're gonna spend $25 to $30 more that way, whereas we're selling them for 40.
Okay.
Or go out to the NRCS and steal them off the counter.
Maybe don't promote that.
I put a string on mine, I tied it to a string because I was tired of them taking my plant.
And those are the flat books.
Yeah.
At least you're making money on them.
That's a little bit.
A little bit.
Love it.
Thanks for
Okay.
doing it, it's
Love it.
nice of you.
So postage and mailing, the fiscal year budget was 2,200. I don't know where you're sitting on that.
We'll probably come in around $500 lower than that,
Okay.
just because I've tried to integrate emailing out renewal notices rather than doing postage. We've been doing that a lot, so we're saving money on envelopes and postage.
Okay.
And you know-
So I budgeted just in case it wasn't an option, but it seems like it's going to be an option this year.
Okay.
Boats, we have around, I think 1,500 customers with boats or something like that, and, I would say 70% of them have email addresses, so
Oh,
we're
good.
gonna be able to save some money there.
Good.
Brandy.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so, employee mileage and travel, we've budgeted $2,000 for that. Do you guys, that's something you think you'll need?
I do, so I budget for the potential of, we don't ever know where our school is until the fiscal year has already gotten here. So, for instance, for fiscal year 25, I budgeted assuming it was at the furthest possible place.
And it has.
And
been,
this year it's in
hasn't
Des Moines,
it? Oh.
so we're not gonna hit
You're not
that.
gonna hit that, okay.
But one year, when, Lisa was there, wasn't it up around Dubuque or somewhere?
Yeah, and we were up at Okoboji last year,
Yeah.
so it was
Okay.
a little bit pricier last year, but,
And they've also raised the mileage too.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, education and training, dues and memberships.
Your dues and memberships are things you have to have.
Yes, it's for the County Recorder Association
Yeah.
and district.
So the records management section, Randy, we budgeted 10,000 this year.
And that does not affect taxpayers. So that has nothing to do, the taxpayers don't see any of that. Right now, it's $1 per document that comes in, that goes into that fund. And that fund is used to redo old books or buy scanners or things like that, but that has nothing to do with any taxpayer money.
Where does the money come from, Randy?
It's $1 per document, goes into my records
Oh,
management
and so
fund.
you use, okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
But we budget for it, so. if it's
I don't
gonna-
know why, because I have close to $50,000 in that budget, or in that fund. So I don't know why we budgeted for it since
Do
it
you
doesn't
think we can
affect.
remove it?
Well, that
Let's
depends,
show it.
I don't know.
You
'Cause I-
have to show it, let's just clarify.
I think you have to show it, you know, since it's not affecting taxpayer money. I feel like I could budget the full amount in case something big comes up, but it's not hurting anything, like if I were to go over the 10,000.
So we have to budget in order to, because you can't spend it unless it's budgeted.
Right.
So I get that. My concern is that when we budget something, that's included in the big amount that we have to levy for. So my question is, do you think you'll be expending 10,000?
I have about, I don't know exact numbers. We're gonna say 350 large books that go back to 1840s. And some of them, you can't touch the pages or they're gonna fall apart. So every year, we do approximately 3 or 4 books that costs a little over $5,000.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to do more books at a time,
Okay.
so then we can index and scan them into the system, which makes them available to the public easier.
Can you show this, can we show it on a revenue, so we can balance it? Since you have, we can't, you've got this money in the pot, and it's not taxpayers, it's,
So we have to show it in order so she can spend
I
it.
get that, but we could
So-
probably, make a note that it's,
I guess when we do our levy determination, we can keep that in the back of our mind, right?
yeah, that it isn't,
'Cause
yeah,
the
I
funds are
think so
there.
too.
And I don't know if it affects that overall. I don't know how the back end of it works
No.
for that part. I just know that that part does not affect taxpayers. That's something that purposely goes into that fund for the use of scanners and repurposing books.
So my question to you is there a chance where we can just use that fund and just get all the books done, contract with somebody and just do it?
Well, it's time, you do it when it's, and the contracting was really we did check into that.
If you, I suppose that's a possibility.
Because right now you're using man hours to do that, your own people, right, to do that, to scan it and,
Yes, we are, to save money, because those companies charge you thousands of dollars to come in and do that for you.
And she does it, when they have downtime, then they go do all that, so she does it to be economical.
And that's
That
thousands of
company
dollars
is
on top
really
of doing
expensive.
that book.
Yeah.
So if we had them scan it in and do all that, whereas right now, we're doing that in our downtime if we have down. So, I don't,
So how much time would you say you guys are
I don't know if you
taking
can put a time frame on it, cause it's, you know, a customer comes in, you go back and you work on the book for 5 or 10 minutes, and then a customer comes in and you go back. But, I mean, I don't know how you put a time frame
So
on
you're
it.
just utilizing yours, when you have a few minutes, you go back and do
Yeah.
a couple pages. Yeah. Very efficient.
We're
Okay.
using
'Cause
our
you have-
employees
'cause
that
you
we
have-
already have.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have three, correct? You
I have
and then two.
3 total in the office.
3 total in the office, okay. Okay.
Counting you.
Yes.
Yeah, you have 3 total.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that, you know, if we can, if we have 50,000 in the budget, or if we have 50,000, would it be more cost efficient to just get it done, so.
You're gonna spend the same amount of money whether you do $200 this year or you do 5 a year. I don't know how Lisa came up with how many books she did a year, and that's fine. It might have been this budget, you know, showing on the max levy. It might have had something to do with that. I've upped it a little bit so we can get more books that are available for my staff and I to work on. That is the reason that we've done that, but.
Okay.
And there's no urgency to get them all converted by a certain time or
Well,
anything
they're
like that,
falling
correct?
apart. I mean, you're getting
Right.
so.
Other than the degradation of the documents.
So that's why I wanted to know, is because should we get them done so they're not degraded, and, you know, if we do, we're only doing, was it 3 or 4, 5 a year?
It depends on how big the books are.
Okay.
You know, the big 600-page books are gonna be 1,700 to 2,000 per book, and that's to encapsulate them and put a new binder on them.
Can you remember, Brandy, when my first year, Lisa had a company come that would do it, and it was really costly.
It's very costly, and I will tell you that
And it
years
worked.
ago, before I started in 2007, they had a company come in and scan a few books, and they did a terrible job. They did a terrible job. And I don't know who the company was, but we're having issues with those books that they scanned in. So I feel more comfortable having my employees handle those books, because we know what parts of the books need to be in there for abstractors and title searchers. A lot of the pages that they scanned in don't even have the page numbers on them, like in the actual imaging.
Is there more than one company that does it, or?
Oh, yes, we've gotten quotes from other companies before, and I've talked to other recorders about what companies they use. And the company we use right now, I feel does an amazing job, and they are at the low spectrum of the quotes.
Okay, okay. All right, I just, you know, I'm concerned because of degradation, because we all remember what the tax books looked like when we pulled them out of the basement in the courthouse, and some of them are not salvageable. So that's what I'm worried about is, you know, I appreciate you, you know, doing due diligence with using your spare time, but I'm wondering if we're risking the books disappearing if we continue to wait.
Well, they're not, a lot of people aren't getting into those books anymore. We used to have public come in all the time to get copies of them. Anymore, people will call and we are the ones handling it. So it's not public getting into them and possibly not taking care of them. It's my staff, and I trust my staff that they're gonna take care of the books, and they know what they can and can't do with them.
Okay, okay. All right, so moving on, we're going to economic development. This is, just for your knowledge, this is Ryan Marquardt. He is the economic development director. We had a agreement with them. We pay, the county pays the salary, and then the city of Winterset pays the benefits. So what this does is you've seen a couple of his presentations. Basically, he seeks out to help the county grow businesses. We work with the Madison County Economic Development Group, so that's who this is for. Okay. We also do a standard $8,000 economic development grant here. That's in our budget. That goes in there as well. That line item.
That's funded by a grant?
Well,
The
no,
tourism one?
we provide that. And then we also have, we also do community project pledges as well. This fiscal year was 4,000.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to engineer, this is basically, Mike Packett, roads engineer.
He will know down to the penny what
Yes.
he needs.
And this is not really anything we have any influence in, because his funds come from road use tax, and then they get a percentage of the increase for, the assessed value percentage, they get a percentage of the general fund for that. So we really can't cut here, so he gets what he gets, so.
Who is this?
Mike Hackett.
Yeah.
Plus, he has to keep that general fund, we have to keep that fund balance up. He has a $625,000 he uses as a, that's called his rock money. And we've got to keep that up so he can piggyback with that estate money. So we have to keep a balance there for him. Because he uses other money, he has to piggyback money from other sources.
And I know it's complex and there are limitations, and I've had some conversations with him, but he's on the list to sit down and try and understand the details of what drives his funding.
He's a really good explainer, and if you can go back into his office and he'll show you, it's really.
And it's frustrating, because a lot of the public doesn't always understand, we can't just put more money in
I
here,
will
we're
never
prohibited.
complain about roads again.
We're prohibited under Iowa code, so unless it's a special project, so like if we did a special project, we wanted to do a bridge, and we, the county, wanted to fund it, $1.2 million, we could do that, but it has to be a designated project.
But we can't just say, hey, buy more rock, do more roads, we're limited in doing
We
that.
are, and he has to, people don't understand, when he does a bridge, he has to mitigate, he's got to purchase the land if he needs it, he has to work with Fish and Wildlife, he has to work with the DNR.
Mhm.
There's really 2 years of stuff he has to have in place before he can start doing this. Because you just can't go on somebody's land and say, gee, I'm gonna borrow dirt, you can't do it, so.
Well, that's one of my questions, it's gonna be to him, because when I was door knocking, I know that was, aside from property taxes, that was the number one thing people complained about.
They don't.
And they don't understand how the budgeting, the financing part of it. So I'm gonna work with him and see if there's a way that we can just kind of do a summary and informational to help the public understand some of those limits.
He's got a better website, and they are doing a good job about informing people
Yeah.
Yeah,
better.
But I think
if
the-
they take the time to.
Well, the
They may
thing-
not.
The thing
Just wanna
is
complain.
that, that's why it's hard to understand why Dallas County has more money for their roads, even though they have the same amount, relatively same amount of mileage that we do. It's because they get more road use tax because they have higher population.
Well, they have 88,000 people versus 17.
Right.
And they have all the commercial tax.
Right.
And hence why when you go into Ado County, the condition of the roads is far different.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
But it's way costly to live.
the way the calculations work, right now with the state, it doesn't benefit rural counties. So, smaller counties, which is unfortunate, so. Okay, so, the only thing we really sit down with Mike when we meet with him is, we go over his expenses, and hey, is this something you really need to budget? Do you need to spend this amount of money? So just ask questions, but we can't really.
And he will be very precise, he'll know it down.
Usually he gives us basically a sheet of a breakdown of any changes that he gives us and that kind of stuff, so he's pretty efficient on that.
Okay.
All right, moving on to speed pass. Trying to be past time here. The road one is pretty big, so,
And she's got 5 minutes.
yeah.
I don't have to stop right at 8, but yeah, we need to.
Because you
start
said you
that.
had an appointment with your boss, you don't want
Yeah.
So the next one is Veterans Affairs.
And that's in the public health building
Yes.
currently,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
to.
Veterans
He used to
Affairs.
be upstairs on the 3rd floor years ago.
At the courthouse?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this one is pretty, he runs a tight ship as well, he's part-time,
And
and,
he is who?
that's Thaddeus. I don't know if
Smith.
you- Yeah, I don't know if you met Thaddeus. But he reports to the Veterans Affairs Commission, so So, kind of like public health, Susan reports to the board of health, so it's kind of a similar thing. He has funding from other sources as well as us, but the bulk of it is from us. So he also has funding to allow for grave markers and for vets.
He can pay for funerals, he can give them gas cards.
Grocery cards.
He's very busy and he's amazing at his job.
So for him, the employee mileage and travel, that is, it's two-part from what I understand from him. It's the mileage of when the commissioners meet, and then also for him to go to his annual training. So that's usually what that is. We could ask if that's something that tightened up a bit, I don't know, but it's been pretty consistent the last 3 years.
And he will have no trouble telling you where he stands.
He tightened up his budget quite a bit last year, Jess, so I don't know if there's gonna be a lot of wiggle room for him on this. In fact, with fuel, I'm a little concerned it might go up, so that might be something we might want to look at.
And if expenses keep going up, he'll have more people probably.
Yeah, I see that 2,000 for a grave marker, I mean, that's not even a bigger one, is it?
He switched from brass to aluminum, because the brass ones are being stolen.
They still steal the aluminum one.
Oh, they still look too?
I saw one at an auction and I went up to the auctioneer and I said, it's illegal to sell these. So somebody had taken it off the grave and I thought it was despicable.
So, as you can see, it goes down, he also does, for VA transportation program, he also pays for that, so that's a gift.
Medical care.
Medical care, yeah. So, his is pretty tight.
Let's get to
Conservation, okay, conservation. I don't know if, it'll be interesting to see we were hoping to have the nature center up and working by now, like extensively, so we had an idea of utilities
Costs.
and office supplies and all that kind of
Is
costs.
there revenue associated with
It will be when he gets it
that?
going.
Revenue?
There is, well, not current.
No, but should there be when it's up and running?
Yeah,
should
Line
be,
item for it,
but
yeah.
we
It'll
don't
be a
know.
lot of revenue.
So there's an estimate, but we don't know.
Okay, I just wondered if that was a deal.
Yeah.
He can have a lot.
But they're a quasi, they're not I
I'll
mean,
try again, sorry.
Oh,
that's okay.
They are what, Jess?
There's a term, was it quasi, board or something, where the funding's different, it's not like a straight, like the recorder's office.
They
and the
have their
budget
own
now.
board,
Yeah,
yes.
their own board,
And they
they
do
have
a
their
lot
own
of pledges
budget.
and funding, yes.
But then there's the overlap, in essence, between the county.
well, what we
And
do
conservation.
is, they do have some, because they have rentals of the yurts and that kind of stuff, so they do have some revenue coming in, but it varies year to year. We got kind of kicked off our heels with the tornado, which wiped a lot of stuff out, so they lost revenue that year. So it'll be interesting to see what this year shows, probably not a lot.
But they made up revenue during COVID.
Yeah, they did. So, anyway, but basically, we give them their budget, and we can't tell them, hey, you need to, we can suggest, hey, do you really need $3,500 for office supplies? You only spend $2,900, that type of stuff, but we give them the final number, so you have to make it work, so we can't tell them
Sure.
to do that kind of stuff, so,
I'm trying to find money to meet with them and understand and see the interest in their son.
okay, it's a big facility, it's a really big facility, I can't wait till it's on the market.
One thing they do out there is they do, because that was a state park that the state said you can have, kind of have, they do all of their own repairs and roads and everything, his crew. And they keep equipment, because my son worked there longer than they should, because that pickup, he had to crawl through the window to get it.
We had a couple vehicles like that in the county for a
We
while,
do.
too.
We do, we keep things forever.
Yeah. Okay, so that, we'll probably sit down with them and kind of get their their feel on what their future's gonna look like.
And they will be selling their building on the highway, so that'll be revenue.
Well, that revenue is
It'll have
is
to go
already,
back.
it's
It's already
already
planned.
offset the nature center, so, because they've already tapped into their original,
Yeah.
so we're paying for that.
Okay, now's probably a good spot to go ahead and, if there's nothing further on that section, to schedule when we're gonna go into the next work session.
Yeah.
Well, when will we be ready to have the staff here? It goes much faster and better.
Do we know when the auditor or Solutions can get us?
It's solutions, because it was never audited for those months, they have to go back and with Terry and see, because it's not balancing. When it doesn't balance, they have to audit and also work with the treasurer to see if there's what's missing and what needs to be put back in. So I don't know all the ins and outs on that, and they did not give me a time frame.
So, maybe I'm way simplifying here, but is it possible to ask the department heads to look at last year's budget and see if it's possible to retain the costs and absorb whatever increases? I know it's not gonna be possible in some
You
cases.
mean to freeze it?
Just to
freeze
say, is it possible for you to work within the confines of last year's budget? If not, let us know, because we don't have the element of time to go line item by line item. So I'm just thinking, to get the process going, is it possible to just say, department heads, can you start looking at last year's and let us know what's different, if it's possible? Brandy, you're a department head, is that crazy talk, or?
I don't know if I would say crazy talk. It's extremely difficult to determine if you can stay in that budget
Without knowing where your costs
without
are.
knowing where you are now. There's a lot of departments that just don't have any clue on what they've spent or what they have coming in.
Yeah.
And that is very difficult, because maybe they had more expenses this year than they had last year. The cost of everything is going up right now. So it'd be very difficult, I think, to say, yep, I'm only gonna spend $500 on this, when they could go order that next year and it's $100 more than what it was last year. I've come across that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we find out that the education and the County Recorders Association, they upped prices after we had already budgeted for the next year. So I think that would be difficult. It gives you a base, but you can't, I don't know if you can expect people to stick within that. I think you'll come up with a lot of,
Yeah.
oh, we didn't know that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
We didn't know
Plus,
that was gonna
everybody
happen,
wants
because you
a
don't know
cushion.
where you are.
I mean,
We
Well,
all want a cushion, even in our private life, and my husband is a logistics company. When diesel goes up 12 cents, that is going to increase cost of everything.
Yeah, and most department heads do not want to cushion their budgets
No,
so
no,
much that it's
no.
gonna cost taxpayers money. They're doing it so, A, it reduces the work that people are putting into it to amend budgets and things like that. So most of us try to keep it as tight as humanly possible.
Sure.
so we need to get that, Solutions needs to get that yesterday, information to the department heads. I mean, and it's all reasonable to me, but it's the time constraint. So, I mean, I appreciate this opportunity for us to at least sit down and start thinking through and trying to get our hands around it. But I'm very concerned about the timelines based on everything that I've learned.
Well, what I don't want is be stuck with missing revenue coming in, and then we have to go to the department head and say, you're gonna figure out where you're gonna cut. Because you have your budget, things go up, fuels go up, that's a fixed cost. So that means something else has to get cut if we have to stay within that same amount. That's not something we wanna do. And just in smaller departments, it's easier to kind of keep track of what you're spending, but in large departments like secondary roads, treasurer's office, auditor's office, where there's a lot of money coming in and out, that is gonna be very hard to do without the
Without
data.
those reports.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, because I know the Board of Health, Susan had a budget already for them, and they were hesitant to approve it, because again, they didn't have the current numbers, but she already knew ahead of time, but she does not have a lot of expenses as much as other departments. She probably has less than you, Brandy. So, but anyway, so, yeah, we do need that, and the Solutions does understand the time crunch, but they're kind of behind the 8 ball too. So, I'm hoping we have something next meeting.
So do we need a work session between now and the next meeting, or do we need to just plan on the next meeting discussing and evaluating where we're at? If we've gotten the reports to the,
I think it's more efficient to sit with your department heads, and then they will, if they can go down, they will. I mean, I know we're under time constraints, but
Well, not necessarily, Diane, because I remember, you know, we scheduled our meetings, Phil scheduled these meetings 30 minutes apart, and a lot of times the conversations went over because we asked them questions and had discussion.
and that's fine, Heather.
And that's fine, but
We
my
can't
point,
eliminate our staff. They're elected people, and we need to sit down with them.
nobody's
no one's-
trying to do
no
that.
one's trying to do
I've
that.
heard no one say we want to eliminate involving the department heads in these discussions.
This is, the supervisors are in charge of the budget, Diane, and I wanted to make sure that this isn't the first time Jess is looking at it, or we have questions. I mean, I have a list of stuff that we want them to look at, that we see as potential savings or potential increases. So I think it's prudent that as supervisors, we're aware that we're not learning everything in a 30-minute window. Because we have you had some good questions, she had some good questions, and I think it's good that we don't forget to ask them.
Just
Because
trying to get a jump on it, however
we're trying to
we
get a
can.
jump on it, so,
I guess the spring one off the earth in the conversation is just a,
All right, she's under time constraints, so when do you want to do your next meeting?
Well, that's what I'm saying, we're meeting next Tuesday in our normally scheduled meeting,
You want to go after
so
we can,
do we want,
or before?
or have it on the agenda, I guess is my question.
that's my point, yeah, do we need to add it
That's
on
what
the
I'm
agenda,
hearing.
or,
So do a budget workshop maybe before the meeting.
I can't do that.
Okay.
And so help me understand, Diane, your constraints, you refuse to work in the evening, how late will you work?
Oh, well, I don't think a lot of people want to work in the evenings. I mean, we didn't sign up to work nights.
Okay, but all council meetings, all board meetings, those are at night to accommodate the public, which I thought we were servant leaders to serve the public. So I'm trying to understand the
Well,
limitations of our scheduling.
Would you want to work?
Could you meet at 5? Is that too late? Are you wanting to be home by dark? I'm trying to understand.
So are you going to have the staff come back at 5 or just us?
no,
Well,
it's just
in this
us.
day and age, most people have flexible schedules, so if they need to come in late for a doctor's appointment, whatever, they can work a little bit. I'm not asking anybody to work extra hours, but possibly they would need to adjust it, stay a little bit late, come in late that day, come in late the next day. But the citizens are more readily available in the evenings. So I'm trying to find a minute, this is me compromising, I'm gonna move both meetings tonight, both public meetings. I'm not asking to do that. I'm trying to compromise and find a middle ground. I'd be happy to start with one, and we can put it on the agenda to discuss later, but possibly you can think through what your limitations are. Could you
I'll work
meet?
whenever you want
Okay.
to accommodate your job.
And I'm
So I'll
having
work
two
whatever you
things,
want.
conversations right now. One is about moving
budget.
regular meetings, and then I thought,
And
really,
then
before
work
we
sessions.
need to
Yes,
say,
we're off
is
the,
when are we gonna budgets next, if I
Yeah.
don't mind me saying that.
Okay, so, and I think, Jess, I think it's gonna be on the agenda next week to talk about moving one of our meetings, one of our regular supervisor meetings to the
Okay.
evening. So, I don't think we got to it this past
And
Tuesday.
that's fine.
So,
And
but right now, I wanna discuss with you too, is should we have another supervisor work session to finish over our review, because we're about halfway done, review of the fiscal year 25 budget, get talking points, so when we do have the numbers from solutions, we can hit the ground running with our department heads. Because I don't like giving them last minute notice either, because, I don't, because they say, hey, give me your budget in a week, here's the numbers, we have month end, and I don't wanna put them in that predicament, but it's looking more and more like that, and that makes me uncomfortable.
So do we want to hope that we have data by the next regularly scheduled supervisor meeting and go ahead and add a work session?
sure.
I think we
The
should.
problem with doing that for me is I have to take vacation time from my job, if it's not just coming for a meeting. Do you have something to say, Diane, your expressions?
Well, I don't know, you took this job knowing that this is how it would be. And so everyone is being accommodating for your job. It kind of irks me maybe.
Well,
Okay.
It seems kind of selfish.
I'm trying to accommodate the citizens who have said repeatedly to me, why would you have these meetings during the day when you're working?
we had a lot show up there, and it was at 3 o'clock. A lot of people showed up, so it didn't affect them too much. Let's quit the arguing and let's fix this.
Okay.
When do you want your next one? Our next meeting is next Tuesday.
If we're gonna have a work session, I'd love to do it at 5 sometime, but.
Okay, so
but-
next week at 5, what works for folks next week at 5?
Tuesday at 5 PM, so then we'll have our regular meeting at 9:30.
Tuesday at, we wanna do Tuesday on the
Right.
28th, I have a
That's
matura
not gonna
meeting,
That's not gonna work for me.
so that's not gonna work for me. I can do Monday evening, I can do Wednesday
I can do
evening.
Monday at 5.
I can do Thursday evening, Friday evening, so it's just Tuesday was bad because of matura.
Make it Monday at
So here
5.
Monday at 5?
A work session.
A work
We can-
session,
We
Then
can
maybe
do
we'll-
the agenda.
will that work for you?
Yep.
Okay, so, Michelle, can you put that down as a
I
work
got it.
session for budget planning? Basically the same title you used for this one, I think that was.
Did you like that? Okay.
Yeah, this is good.
And then maybe just for you guys to be kind of thinking, at that point, you could start thinking about setting up your department head and elected officials,
Yes,
being
yes.
positive and hopeful,
I'm gonna
that
be
we're
very
gonna have the
positive and
answers that
hopeful
we need.
we get something from Solutions.
and even if you don't, you might still want.
We might wanna schedule it, so in anticipation,
That's my
because even after we get those reports,
thought. They may need a week.
they need a week to make adjustments, and then we have to meet to,
Then it has to go back to the auditor.
We wanna finalize, and that too, because one of the discussions we're gonna need to have too is raises. Because the compensation board recommended 4% for the elected officials, with the exception of the sheriff. And then we also need to talk about our regular staff, not.
And that's all, that Monday nights. Well, I typically don't put agenda items on
Don't put
those
I'm just
things.
telling the board that's
Okay.
something I wanna
Just
talk
put a
about.
Okay. I just wanna make sure that I'm not missing something in the translation.
Okay, so.
I do need you guys to initial that, agenda, please,
All
and
right, if there's nothing else, I move we adjourn.
Second that.
Or I can't make a motion. I will accept a, sorry, I will accept a motion to
I move we
adjourn.
adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll
Diane.
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned.
8:13, thank you.
And I'm pretty sure,
A move and a second.
okay, I stopped. I'll buy us a doctor.
And if you ever want me to run it, you gotta just say, Michelle, just run this thing.